Hello, I'm Mary Brett, the resident doer of things. Thank you for being here. At the Doers of Things podcast, we intend to share conversations with you that demystify the creative process and humanize the journey, which are just fancy ways of saying we hope you get inspired to go out and do the things that bring you joy after hearing a fellow human share how and why they do what they do. We are all innate creators, curating our reality with every thought, word, and action. My guests all have different stories, backgrounds, and passions, but the one thing they hold in common is that they do the things that nurture the reality they want to live. They all just started somewhere and kept doing. Today, we are going to share a conversation had with Val Hoeppner, Executive Director of WMOT Roots Radio in Tennessee. But first, I want to let you know that this is a value for value, pay what you wish, give what you can, free will investment model listening experience. That means you get to choose what you contribute in time, talent, or treasure to reflect the amount of value you get from listening to the Doers of Things. No donation is too small, and all donations help produce the show. Head over to thedoersofthings.com to learn more in the Contribute tab. Now let's get to today's conversation with Val Hoeppner of WMOT Roots Radio just south of Nashville. While not headquartered in Music City, WMOT plays a big role in the music community of Nashville by showcasing artists of all backgrounds on the air, hosting live performances for remote broadcasting, and participating in Americana Fest, the Americana Industry Conference. However, like a lot of the doers I talked to, Val Hoeppner didn't start off where she is now. Join me while we learn about how she went from print media to terrestrial radio and how she overhauled the station to become a flagship in the industry. So, my show is about, I like to focus on creators of all kind.
Sure.
But a lot of it tends to be music because that's the world that I'm in. So the fact that I get to talk to somebody that has other things going on while you're still in the music realm, you have a background in journalism.
Yep.
So maybe take a brief journey down how that kind of happened.
Yeah, so my path to radio and music was not exactly a straight line. It was more, I started out as a photojournalist. I did that for a lot of years. I got involved very early in digital. And by getting involved in digital, I accidentally made multimedia back in the dial-up days.
Okay.
You know, when it had to, 2.5 hours to download something that you made with pictures and sound. And I think that's kind of where I started to love sound. But I worked in newspapers for a little over 20 years and, was the multimedia director at the Indianapolis Star and produced some radio there, produced podcasts there, produced video casts and live streams and all kinds of things like that. And then came to Nashville actually to work for John Siegenthaler at a private foundation called the Freedom Forum. And I was doing training for journalists of color, college students, all the way through educators, professionals, in programs called like the Chips Quinn Scholars Program, the Multimedia Scholars Program, the Native American Journalism Institute. So lots of, interesting things there. And look, I've always been a music lover. And when, things kind of changed at the Freedom Forum in 2013 kind of was, not great in financial worlds for private foundations. I went another direction and I started doing consulting work for media companies, and I ended up taking a job at Middle Tennessee State University as a lecturer. And all of a sudden, about a year later, a job came open to run the Center for Innovation in Media and to run WMOT. And John Siegenthaler pushed me to do that, and here I am. I went from a very digital space in my life to running an analog terrestrial radio station.
Did you ever see something like that happening?
No. Why would I think that was going to happen? It was a real surprise to me when I took over the radio station. It had been a lot of things. WMOT's been on the air since 1969, and it came on the air as a rock and roll station that sometimes at 7 o'clock at night you'd hear the Boston Pops, apparently. I have no idea why they were doing that, but they did. And, but it was a lot of things over the years. And for a long time it was known as a jazz station.
Okay.
very well known as a jazz station. And then, public radio stations that are licensed to universities often have turmoil, and lots of people have opinions about them. And so it got shifted around a lot of times. And when I took over, it was a jazz, classical, news, talk, and sports.
It's a lot going on.
Yeah. And
for people that are like learning.
Well, and it was not good. And we didn't have listeners. We have 100,000 watts of power. We cover 40 counties in this state. And,
that's impressive for a university station.
It's the largest music signal on the FM dial in this area. And yet we were not reaching people. And so when I took over, the dean said to me, well, now that you're on board, you need to fix this.
Okay,
good. Yeah, I like it. I like the challenge.
So you just got a free reign to pick whatever you wanted it to be, or did you kind of cater to the Nashville vibe when you went with Roots?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it just so happened that the dean is a big Americana fan, and I'm a big Americana fan. That's been my, chosen genre of music for a long, long time. And so when we started looking at, well, what can we do to make this make sense, both of us had the idea to head towards Americana, and we hired a consultant, as you do, mostly, to make sure that we weren't making a big mistake. And they said, oh yeah, that's the only thing that's not in the market. Why wouldn't you do that? All that music is made here by people who live here, and there's no place to hear that music on the radio.
Right.
And I took that very seriously, and in, September 2nd, 2016, we flipped that format, and we went from last in the market to today we were 18 in the market.
That's pretty remarkable.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, especially being from a university station.
Yeah.
When I went to Sam Houston State in Huntsville, Texas, which is north of Houston, and it's where Dan Rather went as well. And I was a history major, but I love music, and so I applied to be a DJ on the station. I was the only person who wasn't a mass comm major with a show. And so for 4 semesters, 2 semesters of college rock, 2 semesters of classic rock. And that was a lot of fun. That was just a lot of fun. But that's where it kind of just stopped for me. I did this radio show was the accident. I was not going to Alaska to work in radio. I went to go work in fish and then got fired. And then I'll save us the time, then I ended up with this radio show. And then I just asked if I could keep it when I got back. I started just playing my tunes for like 5 weeks and then started to do a couple interviews. And then when I came back, I went to Americana Fest and just dove headfirst into doing a bunch of interviews. So that's where we're at now. And so to be able to talk to somebody in radio and in a public radio, is pretty nice to get another view from that side.
Well, public radio is so different than commercial radio.
Yeah.
Because, as I tell our listeners all the time, I don't have a corporate overlord that says to me, you've got to make this much money.
Right.
The public radio charter says I have to follow the interests of my listeners.
That's nice.
They're my shareholders, right? Yeah. So we get to do things, for example, just to start at the very most basic, like we play 16 songs an hour.
That's nice.
So on commercial radio, you're going to hear 10. You're probably going to hear 10 songs, on commercial radio. And you look at the way we're supported. We only have 2.5 minutes of underwriting available in any hour. Commercial radio is 15 to 17 minutes.
Yeah.
It's a totally different thing. And I love public radio because it's more than just about the radio. It's about the community, and it's about building a community.
Yeah. And you can feel that, getting to go to that Finally Fridays at 3rd and Lindsley the other week where I met you. It felt like a community, of people. I mean, me being from Texas, not from here, that was palpable. So y'all are doing something good there for sure. Yeah,
I mean, the idea for us is to kind of be the foundation and introduce bands to fans and fans to bands.
Yeah.
That it's a beautiful, structure. And I tell people all the time, I have a really great job because there are no bad days.
Well, that's nice.
There are just no bad days. What is the downside to bringing music to people?
Right.
What's the downside to helping people discover new music? There isn't any. And
right.
I think it's really, especially in these times that we live in, I think it's really, really necessary.
Music is medicine, you know, and that's one thing that I do take really seriously about what I'm doing. Even though I'm in the lower 48, I'm servicing a community that's of about 5,000 or so people on a little island. That to get to a city center, like the biggest city would be Anchorage, that's either a ferry ride and several hours of a car ride or a plane ride. That's just out of most people's logistical abilities, you know? So I feel like I'm able to share with them stuff that they wouldn't have found any other way, you know? And hopefully one of these artists or authors or painters or whatever sparks inspiration in them, you know, and helps them in some way. So I hope that's what I'm doing.
You know, during COVID, I mean, you think about what we brought into people's homes. Right? Because we came into your home and we were your friend, we were your strength, we were your comfort. Sometimes we were your comedy.
And that's what radio's always been.
Right.
But we lost that along the way of digital and just TV and movie and picture shows and all this kind of stuff, but radio used to be the thing that everyone huddled up around.
Well, I think when the FCC changed the studio origination laws, where you don't have to originate all of your programming or an X percentage of your programming from your home studio.
Okay.
Right? So now they can program hundreds of radio stations in New York City or wherever for, X corporation of, and that's problematic to me because radio's in the commercial space, especially right now, feels an awful lot like it's not very personal.
No.
It feels a lot like an algorithm.
Yeah.
Instead of what radio is supposed to be, which is telling people what's going on in their community, helping them understand the world that they're living in their community, not because Nashville is not New York.
Right.
And there's a lot of radio stations in Nashville that are programmed in New York.
Yeah.
Let's be real. And the two have nothing in common. And you can really hear it on the radio, whereas WMOT and even at WNXP and WXNA, some of the public radio stations, they are hand-curated playlists.
Mm-hmm.
And they serve the local artist community. We do a feature every day called the Daily Brew. It's kind of a spin-off of our local brew hour. And every day at 6:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m., we play a local artist.
Okay.
And the same thing at NXP, they have, a local artist segment every day. And WXNA, they're all about the local artists. And I think if you don't have that, you sound like you're from New York, and we're not in New York.
Right.
And your people aren't, that's a different experience.
Yeah, I mean, there are a couple of commercial radio stations there, that have them tapped into the algorithms of the matrix of whatever is being shoved down our throat, that this is what you're supposed to be listening to right now, So I'm glad that I ended up where I did. When I first got to the island, I did reach out to one of the major stations, because I didn't know who was who, and then they didn't respond, and I didn't follow it because I was trying to focus on the job I got hired to do. And I guess I just did too good of a job because they said I was overqualified and fired me. And then posted on Facebook, like, hey, I'm 4,000 miles away, here's my work experience. I need a place to stay or I got to go home. And the guy who answered it needed some construction work done. It was in my wheelhouse. And he also happened to be the IT guy for the station and just reached out, like, do you have anything for her? So I'm forever just grateful that that the first people didn't respond to me, and that it all played out to where I ended up at KMXT. Because they've been... I'm learning as I go, and they've been really patient with me as I've done it. And I don't think that a commercial station would be able to do that.
No, they have a different
agenda.
Yeah. And, I think public radio is about authenticity, right?
Yeah.
It's about real people and not like this glossed over version of Nashville. Nashville is gritty. The songwriters are gritty. They're there's this pop country thing that's, that everybody thinks Nashville is. But we know if you're wearing a cowboy hat and cowboy boots, you're a tourist.
Right.
You can wear one or the other, but not both. And that's sort of that, there's an authenticity test here that, there's incredible writing and performance going on in the Americana world. Last night we had Rodney Crowell.
Nice.
Yeah, we do a monthly show called Wired In, and it's for our members only. And we were in a 120 seat venue with Rodney Crowell.
Beautifully intimate.
Yeah, and he read stories to us, and he played a little music, and it was a lovely thing. But Rodney Crowell is a real Nashville legend, and his songwriting continues to be incredible. And those folks aren't played on so much of radio, and I think that's what my goal is, to always amplify people who have had careers and help them continue to have a career. Well, and new people too. Discovery wise, we want to help people have careers in music. They may not be on the top 40 chart, or they may not, not everybody's going to be Maren Morris or whatever, but
not everybody wants to be either, but they still want to play their music.
100%.
That's like, I don't have that desire to be consumed that much by people, but I do know that I want to share what's coming through me. I do know that that's a thing that's supposed to be happening, and I do it to the level of what's comfortable for me, and I don't work for the algorithms, and I don't want to be in a situation where people are trying to force me to. I see people that I really like, and then they make a post and they'll say something about like, oh, my record label says I have to do this, and it's like, I don't want to be there. I don't ever want to feel pushed to do something to just satiate some algorithm. So it's really important that stations like this continue to exist and thrive. So, thanks for all that you do to make that happen. It seems like you have your hand in a lot of different cookie jars to help with inclusivity and diversity and all of that. What is the one that you're most proud of?
I think, I've done a lot in my career, and one of the things that I'm really proud of, and I just got an award from the National Press Photographers Association for helping to diversify newsrooms around the country, and I think I'm really proud of that. But I transferred that that diversity work into WMOT, and I think when a lot of people think of Americana music, they think of old white guys sitting and strumming a guitar, and that's not what Americana music is, and it's certainly not what it is on our radio station. Yeah. We play 50% women, 50% men. We are about parity. That's how it should be. Black people and brown people and queer people, and I think that makes us a more rich station, and I'm really proud of being behind that effort and giving people an opportunity that not everybody gets, Right.
What was it like working with somebody like John?
John was a legend. He was, first of all, he was an incredible journalist and passionate about that and passionate about pursuing the truth. But he also was a civil rights icon. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know he worked for Bobby Kennedy. Yeah. He's the guy that saved Diane Nash in Montgomery and got hit in the head with a pipe and knocked out.
I remember reading about that story in college as a history major. And then when I was doing my research about you, I was like, oh, wow, really cool. She worked with this guy.
Yeah, and that pipe was in a case, and it sat right outside my door at my office at Vanderbilt. And John, incredible person, incredible humanity. And one thing that really struck me about John, and it's something that I try to do, to model after him, is if he was available, he would talk to anybody.
Well, you're doing that right now. You're living that out right now, for sure.
It's true. He would, so you would, any given day, people would come in. If he didn't have a meeting, he would just say, send them on up. And you never knew who was going to come through that door. One day I was looking down and I saw this guy in ratty jeans and flip-flops, and I thought, maybe who knows who John's talking to today. And then I hear the voice, and I'm like, that voice sounds really familiar to me. And I'm walking over towards his office, and off the elevator comes Jimmy Buffett. I was like, oh, hey, man. So weird. But John, just an incredible, he was always fighting for other people's rights and really a champion of the First Amendment. And that was something that continues to be important to me. And, frankly, right now we have a lot of crazy stuff going on in Nashville and in Tennessee, banning drag performance and things like that. And that's a First Amendment issue to me.
I'm a burlesque performer as well, so that's just one step over.
Yeah.
And they go hand in hand. I've done burlesque in drag shows. I've had drag acts be in my burlesque shows that I produce. It is a form of expression, for sure, 100%.
It's free speech.
Yeah.
And of course, there's going to be lawsuits and things, and I'm glad for that. But John would not appreciate what's going on these days. But he was an incredible guy, and one of the stories I tell a lot about him is that I kind of felt like he was my surrogate grandpa, because he and I were the two journalists that worked in that building, and at night when it was time to go home, I would always walk over to his office and to say goodnight. And 2 or 3 times a week he would say, "Oh, just come on in and sit down." And he taught me to drink Irish whiskey. That was one of the things he did. And he'd pull out a glass in the bottle, and we would sit down, and he would tell me these incredible stories about the Kennedys and Bobby Kennedy and Ethel Kennedy. And I got to meet Ethel Kennedy several times with John, and stories about Al Gore, who worked as a cub reporter for John.
Okay.
And so they were lifelong friends. And so when Al, wrote a book, he asked John's opinion, and John was that guy for a lot of people. But
it's a good guy to have in your corner.
Yeah, but it was really interesting to know someone and hear from his perspective what the civil rights fight was all about, and what that era was really like, and what it was like growing up a somewhat privileged white guy and fighting for those rights.
What do you think he would say today about the state of racial relations in the country at whole today?
Yeah, I think he would be disappointed, and I think he would be continuing to fight that good fight, and it was his idea to bring me in as a diversity educator to try and put more black and brown people in newsrooms, because he felt really strongly that if we were telling our own stories, it would make a difference globally. And I think we've lost a lot of that just because of the economy and different things that have gone on. But I think he would still champion that. I think he would be really frustrated.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I look at the younger generation. I have 4 kids, and they don't think like my generation, and they certainly don't think like John's generation. They don't see color, they don't see difference, they embrace difference, and I think John would be hopeful in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's clear that you really care about what you're doing in the radio and that you enjoy it. There are no bad days where you're at. But is there anything that you miss about the hustle and bustle of a newsroom? Because that's a totally different vibe, especially before digital media and stuff came in.
Yeah, I used to get this twitch in my eye, and on election night, I there is something about telling people stories that is a privilege, and it's kind of addictive. I spent a lot of time doing work on Indian reservations in South Dakota, and telling stories that made a difference and changed laws and things like that. And you don't get into journalism to be about yourself. You get into journalism to make a difference in people's lives. And sometimes that was, knowing that somebody's grandma cut out a picture that you shot of them playing football and put it on their refrigerator. And sometimes it was putting the former governor of the state of South Dakota in jail.
Yeah.
It's a vast thing. So I miss that, and I miss those relationships that you form with people. But I think that I think working in radio and in the music industry, I think it's just a different kind of storytelling that I'm trying. And now I'm a
True.
boss, right?
Yeah.
I'm not, the one actually telling the story or curating the playlist, but I'm allowing that, or I'm helping that happen, helping other people tell their stories now.
Where would you like to see this station go? Is there anything you'd like to see happening there that's not happening right now? Or are you in a sweet spot where you can just coast till you're done?
No, I've never been a coaster. I'm always about trying to make improvements, and I think one of the things that I really want to happen is to be more influential and make sure that more women are getting on the air elsewhere and getting the attention that they deserve. Margot Price is brilliant. Mm-hmm. She's brilliant, and she deserves to be bigger than she is. Her storytelling, her story, everything about her, she's incredible. And why don't more people know about Margot Price? They should. And I think we want to be more tastemakers. We want to push that nationally. And I think what's interesting about WMOT right now is that, okay, so we cover 100,000 watts worth of area in Tennessee, but we actually have a huge streaming audience. We have almost as many people that stream us from outside of Tennessee as we do listening in Nashville.
That's pretty great.
That's pretty crazy. And I think it's because something that I learned very early on in my journalism career is that online digital rewards niche, right? If you do something really well in a niche space that they can't find anywhere else, you will prosper online. And I think that's why our streaming prospers, because nobody else is doing what we're doing for specifically the Americana genre. And so that is an area that we will continue to really work to reach, as I always joke, global domination, world domination,
I've reached out to Margot's people. I have not gotten through, but I would love to have her on because to talk about her sobriety. I really want to try to help bring awareness to that because we can't be what we can't see, or at least it's really hard. And so, especially in this music industry, it's just rife with alcohol and alcoholism. And for the people that have the courage to go out and do that and be seen in that process is really powerful. And so to try to bring people on the show that have that story is a goal of mine.
She's have you read her book? Yeah, it's a good one. It's Maybe We'll Make It.
Okay.
And it just came out a year ago, maybe not even quite a year ago now. And she, one of the things that I found fascinating about her is, she and Jeremy were just devastatingly poor at points, and devastated, just had really hard things happening in their lives, but they found their strength in music. Mm-hmm. And she went through a lot of hard times because of different things that happened throughout her life. But she, I think giving up alcohol has made her really strong, really strong. But her story, if you haven't read it, I recommend it. It's a fabulous.
I'll go out and get that one. Yeah. Because any little extra bit that helps you realize that you're not alone in it and everything. I know that it's totally changed my life, and I didn't even intend to not drink anymore. I just was not going to drink for 2 months, and then I just kept liking what I was finding. I just don't see that it doesn't have anything else to offer me. That's good. I'm not a dabbler in anything I do. And so I squeezed the sponge of every experience you can get from booze. And I just don't think there's anything left there for me, and to realize that, at this point I've done everything that I did with booze that I thought wouldn't be fun if I didn't have the booze. And I've had just as much fun, or I've realized I actually really don't like this. I was just here for the booze. That's given me a freedom. I have I was already a free person, but now I have even more freedom to not have that just kind of over my shoulder, thinking about it, interacting with it, repairing from having consumed it, and all those kinds of things. And I know that certain blessings in my life have only come into my life because I'm not drinking anymore. I totally feel that for sure. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what would be, I'm going to let you go soon. I know you got things going on. But what would be maybe a misconception that you would like to try to dispel in doing the work that you do?
That's a good question. I don't know. I mean, I think there's this perception that well, I talked about it, like that Americana music is a bunch of white people, and it's one thing, and it's bumming and strumming, and whatever that is. And I think that if I can bust one myth, it is that everybody has a story to tell, and they get there in different ways.
Yeah.
And that's a beautiful thing. The War and Treaty, they're so great, right?
Oh, their love is like so palpable but yet not disgusting.
They are.
Like there'd be some people that they were on stage and they looked at each other like that and they held hands. I'd be like, barf. Like that's not even real.
But it's authentic.
But theirs is so authentic. It's just magical. And then you pair that with what the energy that comes out of them when they're singing. Like, I'm getting emotional just thinking about it.
Well, Michael's story is so powerful, living through the Iraq War and dealing with PTSD and all of the things that they've dealt with. Jason Isbell has a very different story to tell, and he has been a tormented guy over the years. Everybody has a story to tell, and I think that diversity is good. I am proud of diversifying our music community. I'm proud of bringing artists of color in every way, shape, and form. Trans artists, non-binary artists, to people, and I think through doing that, we don't just teach them about the music. We teach them about how people live.
Yeah.
And that it's okay.
Yeah. It helps. Oh, he just helps humanity, to be able to see the humanity in these people that they feel are different than them. But when you can hear a song and it touch you, and you wouldn't have known that stuff about them because you're just hearing it on the radio, and then you look it up and you find that out, it might make you think a little bit differently. It might at least gives the offering to think about, like, wait a minute, that person might have a similar story to me after all, and maybe I don't have to come with so much hate or so much just closed-mindedness about it, indifference about it. So that's an amazing work that you do to make that happen, and I'm sure you get pushback from this place and that place. So my last question will be, how do you deal with the pushback that you get from people who aren't ready to make those changes, aren't ready to see people in the human light that they are actually living in?
Well, we have a lot of different listeners because we're in Middle Tennessee, and
right.
They cover every political spectrum. But I have encountered folks that don't want to make that change, and all I can ever say is WMOT is proud of the diverse music community that we've cultivated. We're proud that we play diverse music on the air, and unfortunately, some people don't want to go there, and so I offer them this advice: turn the channel, because we're not going to censor our artists, we're not going to change who we are, we're not going to change our mission, we're not going to do that. So if you don't like what you hear on the radio station, then you've made up your mind. Just listen to something else.
Well, I think John would be really proud of you.
I hope so.
That you're making that stand.
Yeah.
Sorry, I get emotional at these things all the time. Because it makes a difference in people's life. It really does.
Yeah.
Music is one of the things that we turn to first. If we're not turning to the bottle or some other thing to escape into that does a detriment to us, music is the thing that we escape into that serves us and that allows us to see ourselves through another person's eyes, even if we've never met. Somebody that can tangibly explain these internal landscapes that not everybody can put into words or a painting or a book or something like that. But music is one of the most primal things that's been around from the beginning of humans, that ties us no matter where you're from or what language you speak or what food you eat or how you love. Like, it's music that ties us together. So the people who are on the front lines of making sure that music stays authentic and genuine and diverse is really important for just humanity as a whole. You know, if we want to get really heady about it, you know, like it is really important work. And I think that gets kind of overlooked because there's a fame quality behind it, you know, but that's only like a small percentage of what the music that's actually being created all over the world. You know, there's more people making it than are actually that get to share it in mass.
Well, and look at TikTok.
Oh, right.
I mean, like how much music this younger generation is consuming. Absolutely everything. Like I said, I have 4 kids. They're, you know, my oldest is 24 and my youngest is 16, and they discover music through TikTok. And I mean, like it or hate it, the democratization of music has bred diversity, and I hope it breeds diversity of thought. Yeah.
Well, Val, you know, just thank you so much for taking your time out to talk with me and my listeners, and thank you for everything that you do for your listeners here at WMOT. So, yeah, just thanks for everything you're doing.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
It's one thing to change career paths in the middle of the game. It's another to come in and turn an organization around from surviving to thriving. It's a whole other thing entirely to help an industry open its doors to voices who have been shut out over generations. Val Hoeppner has done all of those things. In the world of streaming services, with any song at the touch of a button, we take radio for granted. While it used to be the focal point of the home, it's now lucky enough to even get a little play in the car. However, I challenge you to tune into your public radio stations to not only discover music you won't find anywhere else, but to also hear yourself and your community reflected back to you. And if you don't like what you hear, figuratively and literally, just turn the dial. Thanks for being here and listening to episode 4 with Val Hoeppner on the Doers of Things. I just want to remind you of the value for value model this listening experience runs on. My current pledge to you is to never have sponsorship ads or corporate commercials. I also have no plans on creating tiered content or a subscription fee that prices people out of the experience of hearing their fellow humans share their stories. All content is for all people, all the time. I can do that with your help as a producer of the show via your time, talent, and treasure. So if you enjoy the show, please consider becoming a producer to whatever level you can. Head on over to thedoersofthings.com in the Contribute tab to learn more about how you can jump on board. Until the next time you tune in to The Doers of Things, I'm Mary Brett saying, how can you make a life with no bad days?